So this is Rich Negrin, Managing Director and Deputy Mayor for Administration and Coordination for the City of Philadelphia. And we thought we'd do something a little different with a presentation that I was asked to do by the National League of Cities, which talked about the great innovation strategy and many of the innovation efforts that are going on here in Philadelphia city government. I've been managing director for 5 years, and one of our proudest accomplishments as an administration is all of that we've done around an innovation strategy in our innovation lab and around technology. Cities have asked us to discuss those efforts, to highlight some of the big things, and really share with folks exactly how we're doing innovation in the city of Philadelphia. So I thought the public might want to hear about some of those efforts so that we could highlight them and talk about them in ways that might be able to help others. So you really can't start talking about innovation and changing the culture of government around innovation without having an actual plan. So what we actually begin with is kind of the approach around innovation doesn't just happen. You have to be deliberate, and we often say innovating with intent is sort of the big goal. But you have to actually establish a vision and a goal. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, and also around how you create the conditions for innovation. How do you develop an actual tangible strategy around it? And how do you overcome challenges and prepare for the future? Those are all things we're going to discuss in this presentation, which are all part of many of our innovation efforts. Philadelphia's innovation strategy, it all begins with that vision. And our vision for us was really quite simple, that Philadelphia becomes an innovation-friendly city again and stays a city of first. We thought it was really important to reach back into our history, where Philadelphia is known for a city of first, but has great innovators like Benjamin Franklin and others who have just done remarkable things in terms of innovation, and where Philadelphia was really this hub of creative thinking and innovation. And as we like to say, we innovated a country, right? The United States of America began here. So whether it's in the scientific realm, the technology realm, the political realm, Philadelphia is known as this great city, a very progressive city of innovation. And we wanted to reach back and kind of capture some of that. And you'll see some tangible, real efforts to do that as we go through this presentation. Our goal was really simple: to make government a convener, a catalyst, and a champion of innovation. That really is an important part of what folks call the innovation ecosystem here in Philadelphia, and that's really important. So our approach in how we wanted to spur innovation has been to advance an innovation strategy that makes technology more accessible and relevant to the public and cultivates innovation inside municipal government. And by that, what it really means is innovation just because it's something new and shiny and interesting is not the goal. In public service, innovation really needs to be about improving people's lives and serving our citizens in ways that are solving old problems in new ways. That is what innovation should be about. So that's been our focus and really our approach. So I thought it made sense to talk about sort of where it all started. And 5 years ago, sort of the beginning of this effort. This is not, an overnight success. It's taken a great deal of planning, but it's important to look back and see sort of where you were in order to determine how far you've come. And as you can see in this slide, talks about the beginning, talks about the instability from 2004 to 2010. Really, a lot of different leaders and a lot of different senior teams. And that creates a lack of stability over time and a lack of continuity. Good, talented people all here, but when you have different leadership, you have different visions, and you don't have kind of the kind of stability that you need to make lasting change and some significant improvements. So that was a big challenge for us on the technology side. And then there was just not enough sort of senior level talent that I thought really embraced the innovation agenda. It's not that folks weren't really talented and smart and technically proficient. It's that we wanted kind of a different culture and a different type of thinking around how we moved forward, and willing to take some risks, which is unusual in government. And the infrastructure really lacks stability. As a government coming of age in the digital age, this administration has really made a huge effort to make sure that we don't have any major issues around security breaches and things of that nature, which are common throughout the technology world and certainly in the government sector. So we've worked very hard to buttress that up, and that's an ongoing daily challenge of real time risks that are always out there that we need to be forever diligent around. And there wasn't a whole lot of stability around that when we started, and today that is much improved. There was a little emphasis on customer service, right? The way technology was perceived and how we looked at innovation was really sort of a nuts and bolts, reactive, really uh, traditional operational structure that I think is very different today than it was then. And really, we've embraced a culture of customer service and continuous improvement in a way that we have great internal customers, but we also have great external customers, and both need to be thought about and serviced in ways that are at the highest level, which is really a different approach. Treating our citizens and our employees as customers and thinking them as such has never been a huge priority in government, and I think that's a sea change that you've seen with this administration and certainly with Mayor Nutter's emphasis. And as he says all the time, we are all in the customer service business, and public service is customer service, and that's really important. I think you saw little engagement from city employees where we didn't listen a lot to our clients and our customers, and we didn't engage them in ways that helped them become part of solutions and part of problems and make them feel real ownership around driving innovation and technology needs. And that's very different today. A lot of status quo thinking prevalent in the culture, very different today. Still pockets of that throughout the city, but much, much improved. And then I think you saw little engagement with this great local tech community here, that economic, the innovative ecosystem that we talk about that that is unique to Philadelphia in so many ways. Whether it's the creation of Third Street becoming Nerd Street because we have so many startups down in Old City, or it's the many great eds and meds and the universities here that are doing great innovative things and have innovative centers, really engaging the city with those partners. And there's a multiplier effect on making a difference that just really wasn't a part of what we did as a city 5 years ago. And that's changed a great deal today. Um, So before you can do anything significant around innovation, you really have to create the conditions for innovation. A lot of people jump into an innovation strategy and they jump into an approach that really gets them in trouble. I think you have to be thoughtful around first things first. And before, even though I knew I wanted to make innovation a priority, and the mayor certainly wanted to make innovation a priority, we really couldn't do that without laying the groundwork around staff first and finding the right folks, getting the right people on the bus first initially is really critical. So I spent a great deal of time on the CIO search. We did a national search. We utilized a great partnership with Diversified Search and really worked to interview people across the country. And it was really special for Philadelphia because I think I saw CIOs from major states, from major cities, all interested in coming to Philadelphia and all interested in leading our innovation and our technology team. And Adel Abid really stood out. I spent a great deal of time with him. We were very like-minded in terms of the approach, but I also thought he had the fortitude and the resolve and the demeanor to be able to to really function well in government. Public service is hard. Clients are demanding, citizens are demanding. The culture in Philadelphia government is not for the squeamish. You need to be able to keep pushing ahead and to just have great resiliency in light of many, many challenges, whether it's budget challenges or the sheer scope of the job. And you needed the right kind of person with the right demeanor and the right approach. And Adele really delivered on that. And his role in and of itself was innovative. So we didn't just bring him in and plug into the old org chart. We changed the role and created for the first time a chief innovation officer and what that innovation officer would do, so that we didn't look at technology any longer as just a classic technology office. It was an office that was really built around a broader innovation theory and theme for the entire city. And we defined that role that way, which is really important. The mayor then obviously signed an executive order, which was critical in changing the name of from the Office of Information and Technology to really the Office of Innovation and Technology, which drove a very, very different structure through city government, but really helped set the tone for what we were hoping to accomplish as an organization. Um, as we talk about creating the conditions, next to creating a chief innovation officer on the part of Adele, he and I had a lot of conversations around as we move forward around innovation. And a lot of folks, I think, get this part wrong. And this is a quote that I said quite often early on, that you can't build great innovations and technologies and talk about an academy or a lab or uh, or anything around an innovation ecosystem and great partnerships if the nuts and bolts of what IT does isn't going well. And that's really what this quote was about, is that you have to almost earn the right to innovate. You can't come out of the box innovating. You've got to be doing the basic blocking and tackling really well. And you're not going to throw the flea flicker double reverse if you can't line up right. And the bottom line is for us to kind of get those basic things right. And that was a challenge at the beginning, especially with some of the dollars, in terms of making sure that that we were tracking our downtimes, that our servers were up and working, that people's basic Blackberries and emails worked, and that the speed on their computers were at an acceptable level. You can't have great innovative things that programs that you're delivering on when you can't do some of those basic IT functions correct. And that's an important lesson for folks to think about that first. So this was a big challenge for Adele because you need to get ready for innovation. You need to get ready to do some creative things while you're also running and managing those things on a daily basis. And that's where this concept of building the ship while sailing comes in and what the big challenge is. And I'm not going to go through each of these, but you can see that there were some basic nuts and bolts infrastructure, customer service things, the really new defined roles and hiring of personnel and really engaging with the local tech community in different ways that all had to happen around the same time. So as we stabilized IT, as we made it more functional and modernized and relevant, we had to make sure that we continued to sort of see the road ahead in terms of innovation and prepare ourselves for doing that. So that was a critical aspect of what we were trying to accomplish. So the innovation strategy is really quite simple. It really has three legs of the innovation stool. And it's really a lot more complicated than these three basic concepts. But to narrow it down, we really, first, there's an innovation fund, and that was a fund really created by the mayor that, in partnership with, we were lucky and fortunate to win the Bloomberg Challenge that helped set up, $1 million uh, um, pool for us of dollars to use around innovation that was really creative. So those were some dollars that could be utilized and take some risks. One of the challenges I think for the public sector is taking risks with taxpayer dollars, and you don't want to be doing and building new and creative and risky apps and different approaches with taxpayer dollars. You wanted to create sort of this fund that would allow you to do that, and the Innovation Fund was a critical part of that. And then the Innovation Academy is really designed, and I'll talk more about it in detail, but really around really changing culture through the personnel piece. That if you can't drive innovation from a top-down approach, innovation needs to flow through the organization and go both ways, coming up from the top, from the bottom, and down from the top in order for it to be consistent. And the Innovation Academy was really designed to help build some capacity internally amongst our folks around innovative problem solving. You can teach innovation. You can teach ways to problem solve in a creative process that I think works and makes City better. And that's what the Academy is all about. And then the Innovation Lab. It was important for us to have a space that mattered, that spoke that we were committed to innovation, and that showed all city employees that we were really in the innovation business. And at first we had talked a lot about having a virtual innovation lab that kind of traveled around the city and used the locations of our partners to help have a virtual lab. And we decided after visiting some of those labs that, boy, there was a really different feel to the physical space and that it matters. And I'll talk about that some more, but that really is our innovation lab. These three critical areas are what really form the backbone of our innovation strategy. So starting with the lab, as I said, we came to a realization through this process that space really matters. If you look at the mural on this slide, which I think is really great, done by a phenomenal artist and in partnership with the Mural Arts program, um, it captures many of sort of the lesser known Philadelphia firsts. A lot of folks know that we have a lot of great things like, the first zoo, the first firehouse, so many of the first that occurred, whether it was the first library or theater and those things. We're sort of well known for some of those, but there's some lesser known ones that are really interesting that are on here that I'm not going to talk about today. So you can visit the lab and check them out and look at them. And there's actually a great video that explains what many of these things are. But it's really our way to kind of reach back into our past and find our identity around innovation. And this mural is at the really the west wall, the largest wall there in the innovation lab. It is a constant reminder to folks working in the lab that it's a rich part of our history, both in the past and today. So you'll see some past times innovators there like Ben Franklin, but you also see some recent innovations like 311 and Philly Rising, our neighborhood initiative that are new to Philadelphia but are just as innovative and really neat. You can see the capabilities of the lab. It is technology enabled with state-of-the-art technology, obviously Wi-Fi, movable furniture, lots of different partitions. You can see all of the functions required in the lab. The lab is not just a great individual working space where people spend time up there, but they really spend time up there bumping into each other and sharing ideas and having discussions, and that's a big part of what we wanted to do. So there's a part of that is sort of unstructured that we're finding people are really enjoying. But it's also sort of a more formal meeting space for projects and for hackathons in partnership with City Youth, which we did on the first day on the kickoff. Great pictures that you'll see in this presentation of the mayor and students working into the lab. We wanted to make sure we incorporated the neighborhoods and many of our students into this in a great way. And obviously the local tech community from around Philadelphia spends time partnering with us in this lab in a way that makes sense. So that's really the basic functions of the Innovation Lab. The mayor, obviously, I can remember this conversation. It was a young lady showing the mayor how to properly use a website that I think was highlighting LeBron James at the time, if I remember this one. But what a great vision that is right there, right? That's what it's all about. In this picture, which captures the Innovation Lab and what it's all about, students enjoying and learning and partnering with their city leaders and other city employees throughout this photo, really creating a great learning environment, but doing something really important for these young children, which is letting them know that government does innovation really cool. And the children are so in line with technology nowadays. When I mentioned on this day to a young person, whether they were on Twitter, he turned to me and said, "Twitter's old." They're all on something else, right? Whether it's Snapchat or Periscope or Meerkat, right? Young people are often several years ahead of all of us in what we're trying to accomplish. And if we're not bringing them in, we're not learning from them and showing them that government can be cool and that they can actually utilize their interest in technology to get a great education, to go to college, to get a good job, to work for the city, to help people. It's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish in the Innovation Lab, and I think it's been really successful. And this is really a unique approach that really Adele brought to me, and it grew and developed. Started out small, but really an opportunity to create these graduation classes of city employees. And we partnered with a great partner at Philadelphia University. Dr. Spinelli has been just a phenomenal advocate and an evangelist for innovation at Philadelphia University. And we wanted to engage and created an actual curriculum that would send city employees into the classroom, out of the city to Philadelphia University, back into the city in our innovation lab to work around learning the processes around innovation. And this was important for us because we think innovation can be taught, and we think the basic principles are really important. So we actually created a professional certification in municipal innovation and brought in employees from all different departments across the city, which I think is great because the goal there is to bring them in to teach them these important skills, helps with their career development, gets them thinking differently. Folks who are chosen for these roles were really early adopters, and people who were creative thinkers and doing well, and sort of our leaders of the future. And then they're released back into their departments. So we're not pulling them away. We're actually expecting them to be ambassadors of innovation throughout city government. And so now we've had two classes go through the Innovation Academy. Roughly, the first class was roughly a little around 19 people. I think the last class was just over 20. And it's just a slow and I think constant process of really helping to change the culture of innovation by preparing people to be able to learn those basic skills, which is really critical. The goals of the Academy are pretty straightforward as you look through this. I mean, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but it's just obvious that we want to provide leadership and create that culture of innovation. And the only way to do that is really by having the right people with the right skills throughout city government, not just in one department. And I think there's an important point here. One of the big learnings for us, I think, is we realize innovation can't just be owned by the Office of Innovation and Technology, that we all across the city, no matter where we are, need to be talking and thinking about innovation. And it's not just about technology. That means nuts and bolts type innovations around what we do every single day, and that we're open to those conversations. So that's an important part of the Academy, and we're proud of the fact that that so many of our departments have been represented in the Academy, not just those that kind of touch technology, which I think is really critical to what we're trying to do around the culture. Part of the big way that Adele is implementing a lot of what he's doing around innovation is he created an innovation management group within the Office of Innovation and Technology that is really driving innovation, but key positions led by the Director of Innovation Management. You can't just talk about innovation without creating innovative positions, new approaches, people with roles and responsibilities around developing a strategy and implementing what you're trying to accomplish around innovation. And that's really important. And it supports the Innovation Lab. It supports the Academy, and also supports what's really critical to us trying to reach innovation into our neighborhoods as Philly key spots. Really critical. What Philly key spots is we know we have this significant issue around the digital divide. The last numbers that I've seen around digital integration in Philadelphia are roughly 25 to 30% of our folks don't have internet access. But that ignores the numbers around our most problem communities and our poorest communities. And those communities, like the Philly Rising neighborhoods that we're a part of, the digital divide is much worse than just 25, 30%. In many of those communities, it's almost double that. So you're talking about more than half the people in many of our most challenged neighborhoods not having access to the internet. That means children not being able to do their homework. That means the elderly not being able to figure out federal benefits online. That means the most vulnerable and the poorest being unable to apply for jobs when the overwhelming majority of jobs now are only available online. The days of the paper applications are gone. So one of the things we've done is we've created these key spots throughout the city in many of those problem areas, and certainly in every Philly Rising neighborhood, where we're creating digital access for people in the community, and not just giving them a computer and access like can happen in a library, but actually giving them a person there who is trained, who helps them do things like get a resume together. Really critical, but all things that matter, that are part of what we're trying to do around innovation and helping to spur innovation, not just in the city of Philadelphia government, but also out in our neighborhoods and in our community. So that leads me perfectly to the next slide, which is really kind of an overriding theme that I think you see here, and it's really a quote that I used with a group of CIOs, about 300 CIOs who came to Philadelphia for a conference last year. That's really critical for all of us to keep in mind. And the quote is there. I'm not going to read it, but that point about how we can't think about innovation without making sure that we're doing it for the right reasons, and making sure that we're reaching, empowering, and providing great service to people in our neighborhoods, the folks who need us the most vulnerable, and our citizens who are looking for ways to connect with the city in ways that are more powerful and more engaged. That's really what it's all about for us, and why we are public servants. A big part of the big theory is innovating with intent, and it's consistent with what I've been talking about, that it's not just about the technology and the big shiny things, but it's real things that touch their lives every day and provide a value added in a way that makes sense. And here are just a few examples. I talked a lot about our key spots on the digital divide, and it's there. But the Philly 3-1 mobile app is probably one of the best examples of, for a pretty modest investment. I think the initial cost of the creation around the mobile app was less than $20,000. We're able to create an award-winning app that's one of the best apps in the entire country, that is often replicated elsewhere, that provides phenomenal outreach and empowerment to our employees, that is as simple to use as something like Facebook. If you can use Facebook, you can download the mobile app online. Go in your app store. It's free. It's Philly 311, one word. And with that mobile app, you can connect to your government. You can see contact information. You can get press releases. You can enter in service requests, which is pretty critical. One of the most favorite things for people to do with the mobile app is get rid of graffiti in their neighborhoods. We know we do a great job with graffiti. You can GIS enabled. It gets your location. You can take a picture and submit a request, and within 48 hours, that graffiti will be removed in your neighborhood because of you and because of that app. And that's really neat. One of the things we're proudest of around that is, we're growing as a city for the first time in more than 50 years. And we looked at how we grew culturally across the city, and we really grew in 17 broad communities, 17 different cultural backgrounds. And this mobile app is available in those 17 languages. And we're the only city to really be providing that kind of service, specific to our entire community, not just the majority community. A lot of folks don't realize that many of our immigrants use their mobile devices at a higher percentage rate than the majority population, so to connect back home. So reaching out to them and getting them engaged with government through the mobile device is just a great initiative on our part to try to reach them where they are. Whether it's the Election Day app, whether it's property history, getting information to people through that mobile app is really, really important. But as you can see, what we're trying to do is do creative, innovative things that actually have a purpose and that are consistent with our core values of customer service, which really matter. Our Chief Innovation Officer, this needs to be updated because he is now 4 years with the city of Philadelphia, as of today, quite frankly, and really glad to have the kind of stability. He's brought in a major team that is doing phenomenal things, and so we have that deep bench. The infrastructure is more secure and stable. Obviously, that's an ongoing challenge. You don't ever get complacent on that, and the challenges around security are ongoing and always out there. We have a strong emphasis on customer service, which is really different, and we've changed our conversation. Even the vernacular and how we speak around our citizens has really changed. We've engaged our employees through the academy and elsewhere in ways that we've never done before. And we're seeing, important early signs of work coming out of the innovation lab that is really interesting. Creative ideas. One of the most innovative things that I think I've really enjoyed is that many departments, like our fleet department, has really embraced innovation. Folks don't often think about, you really can't work on a car today without having some basic computer proficiency. They all have computers. They all have chips. So we're really seeing a very change in a shift in the culture from the technology group all the way down to the mechanics in our shops that are really thinking differently around innovation, and we're really incredibly proud of that. That's sort of our current state. And now I think you see some of the partnerships, some of the examples. I mentioned Nerd Street earlier, Alex Hillman and Indy Hall, and when they petitioned for us to change the name of 3rd Street to Nerd Street out of great pride, something like 40 some odd startups in that area that are tech startups growing. Alex from Indy Hall and I meet just 2 weeks ago, literally, to talk about initiatives between us and where we're going. And I've been to Indy Hall more times than I think any managing director before me. The mayor certainly is totally engaged, whether it's Startup Philly or others, with our tech community. So you see a lot of interaction, whether it's city employees and our Chief Open Data Officer, Tim Wisniewski, and others, really attending Philly Tech Week and playing an important part of that with Technically Philly and the community. Very different than where we were 5 years ago, and just a lot closer and a lot more integrated, which is really important. Many of our innovation efforts culminated in a great Philly Innovate Summit that we held in February of this year. Um, we invited the entire innovation ecosystem, really the innovation community, the academic sector, nonprofits, government, and the private community, all within one roof in the convention center for really a great full day of conversation, dialogue, some speeches, and a lot of booths, and really just networking and mingling and spending time together as an innovation ecosystem here in Philadelphia. We announced a new Freedom to Innovate here in Philadelphia. The mayor was there. Many of our partners, Unisys, Salesforce, many of our local tech community was there. Really a great day, which really celebrated innovation in the city of Philadelphia. And then I just wanted to take a moment and highlight some of the recognition that we received as a city and in the managing director's office around innovation. I'm not going to go through all of these, and even these are just a few. We don't even have the individual awards for many of our people who have received recognition. These are really the department type awards. And one of the ones we're proudest of is the White House Champions of Change Award, where myself and Adele Abid actually got to travel to the White House to meet with members of other cities and talk about some of the big initiatives around technology, around Philly Rising, around Philly 311, and ways we were engaging the community in new and creative ways. So really great. And the latest one on here, I think, is Government Computer News, the award for public innovation, which we're incredibly proud of. But as you can see throughout this list, really, it's really special to be recognized, I think, nationally for driving innovation in city government. And it's a huge, huge credit to a great team that really runs throughout the organization. As I go to the next slide, you'll see our challenges. These are not things that are easy. They are long-term efforts, especially the one around maintaining and modernizing our day-to-day technology. What folks don't realize sometimes is that unless you're updating your technology on a refresh cycle every couple years, you're opening yourself up to new security risks with patches and things of that nature. So keeping your software up to date, really critical. Keeping your equipment up to date, really critical. And that's an ongoing challenge that is not going away. In fact, I think the cycle around how you have to modernize around those things is actually shortening. We're going to have to get more aggressive and more creative around how we do those things. Really reaching into the mobile devices and how we manage all of our technology around crises and challenges. That's an ongoing challenge that's there that we always need to be aware of. A big part that you see there mentioned there in the third bullet is around the communications. We're really having the ability to continue to communicate during crises and when there's a lot of traffic and when you're planning huge events like the Pope coming in a month, all things that matter a great deal in terms of our ability to not just ensure public safety, but really be able to keep the city running the way our citizens expect it to run. All ongoing challenges that really matter. Change management, always a challenge in any large organization, but especially in a government that has had a large bureaucracy for a number of years. And we put in systems in place, whether it's the civil service system or others, to try to ensure competence and try to ensure integrity, but those systems also tend to slow down quick decisions and risk taking and change. So we have to find that right balance, which is an ongoing struggle in government, which is there and something that we all need to work together on. And then finally, kind of just keeping diligent around security. As I've said before, it's a huge issue that's not going away, and a big part of what every government and every corporation and college and university is really thinking around. How do we keep our systems secure? As I go to the next slide, it really is around our future state and kind of where we hope to go. One of the big reasons why Adele was hired is because he had sort of this cloud first mentality on a new approach where we didn't want to build a larger infrastructure. We wanted to minimize our infrastructure and send a lot of things up to the cloud and really utilize modern technology. We've done that. So as you see, he is systematically going through making our footprint around those big, large servers and devices smaller and more to a managed services model, which we're engaged in. That's a big part of our modernization and our innovation efforts. And then I think you want to see, we want to make sure that many of what we're doing is really making us better, faster, and more productive. So measuring those things and making sure that we're tracking and using data in real time as we modernize our systems and are able to do that is really where we want to go. We want to institutionalize innovation through the things that we're doing in a way that helps lay the groundwork for city government, not just for the next 5 years or the next 8 years, but really for the next 50 years in terms of where we're going, and we think we're doing that right now. And then, I think you're looking to making some improvements to what we've done around our innovation lab. One of the great things about an innovation lab is that it's this awesome kind of technology-enabled space. One of the bad things about it is you better keep up with the technology, because the technology you have in there is not going to be state of the art in the next year and a half. So a big challenge for us, I think, is to continue to stay ahead of that so that we're not catching up every few years and calling it an innovation lab when it's got equipment that's 5 years old, right? And that's something that happens in government. And then, preparing for the unknown. I think many of our young people are in school. 5 years ago, 29% of our postgrads were staying in Philly. Today, that number is 49%. So our young people, and we've grown by more millennials than any other major city. I think they're preparing for jobs that don't really exist. So I think us making the city a place where people want to come and innovate and make a difference is a little bit of a challenge for us to have that conversation with millennials and make sure that public service is a great viable option and a great way to be to be what it is today, which is an ability for you to work on cool projects that's making a difference, but also that gives you a lot of experience and responsibility at a far earlier experience in your life than you would get in the private sector. And I think that's what city has to offer. So preparing for that and the unknown and making sure that we keep that going is really important. It's really about who we are as a culture, that all of these efforts are really interesting, but they're really just the beginning. And that we have to create really a culture of change so that change management becomes a lot easier. And just a great Ben Franklin quote, one of our best innovators here from Philadelphia, that when you're finished changing, you're finished. That change just needs to become a way of life for us. That if you're not constantly improving and creating that culture of customer service and change, then you're taking a step backwards. There is no standing still. In the real-time world that we live in today, where information is literally shared, we've gone from a 24-hour news cycle to a real-time news cycle, and that goes for the power and the pace of change around technology, but also around improving processes and service to our citizens. So that's what this is really all about. That is our innovation story in Philadelphia, and we're incredibly proud of it. We have a long way to go. Nobody is dancing in the end zone. I don't think we feel like we've accomplished everything that we came here to accomplish, but I think it's the end of a 5-year story that is a great story and a great beginning for a Philadelphia in the future that we're all going to be proud of, in terms of helping to not just be that city between New York and DC, but helping to set the tone for innovation across the country. And I think that's the reason why I was asked to do this presentation at the National League of Cities, because cities across the country are looking at Philadelphia, seeing what we're doing around innovation and looking to emulate that, and we should all be very proud of that. So that is our innovation story.